The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked up the long driveway to my daughter's house in Oakville, the late September wind carrying that particular Ontario bite that tells you winter isn't far off. I had a folder tucked under my arm, the kind lawyers use, stiff and cream-colored with the notary's seal pressed into the corner. Inside that folder was a life I never thought I'd have. My brother Raymond, God rest his soul, had left me everything. A waterfront cottage on Lake Muskoka worth close to $3 million, 2 rental properties in downtown Toronto pulling in $18,000 a month, and a portfolio of blue-chip stocks that, last I checked, sat just north of $4.5 million. At 63 years old, after 41 years of driving long haul for Canadian Pacific, I was suddenly wealthier than I'd ever imagined a man like me could be. And the only person I wanted to tell was my daughter, Claire. I'd practiced the speech on the drive-in from my little bungalow in Oshawa. I was going to sit her down at that kitchen island she loved so much, slide the folder across the granite, and tell her that her old man had finally come into something, that she wouldn't have to worry about her mortgage anymore, that her boys, my grandsons, Ethan and Cole, would have their university paid for, no student loans, no part-time jobs pulling them away from their studies, that she could quit that stressful marketing job she complained about every Sunday dinner, and maybe finally write that book she'd talked about since she was 17. I'd lost my wife, her mother, to pancreatic cancer 6 years ago. Since then, Claire was my whole world. And today, I was going to change hers. I was about to knock on the side door, the one that led into the mudroom off the kitchen, when I heard my son-in-law's voice through the screen. Marcus. My son-in-law Marcus, 41, worked in what he called financial consulting in Mississauga, though, near as I could tell, he mostly shuffled other people's money from one account to another and took a cut along the way. I'd never liked him, never trusted the way his eyes slid off mine when we shook hands. But Claire loved him, and the boys adored him, so I'd kept my mouth shut for 11 years. I was about to keep my mouth shut for another 11 seconds, which is how long it took to change everything. I'm telling you, Claire, the man is a walking liability. He's 63 years old with a pension that barely covers his groceries and a house that's worth, what, $250 on a good day? He eats here 3 times a week. He's going to outlive us at this rate. My hand froze an inch from the screen door. Marcus, please. He's my father. And I'm your husband. And I'm telling you, we need to think about this practically. My mother went through the same thing with her dad. By the time he finally passed, they'd spent 80 grand on home care alone. 80 grand, Claire. That's Ethan's entire undergrad. Dad isn't sick. He's healthy as a horse, for now. But you've seen him lately. The way he repeats himself. The way he forgot Cole's hockey tournament last month. I had not forgotten Cole's hockey tournament. Cole had told me it was canceled. I remember, because I'd driven 40 minutes to Whitby before I got the text. He's just getting older, Marcus. Exactly. And we need a plan. Look, I've been doing some research. There's a place in Peterborough, Maple Ridge Manor. Decent enough. Shared rooms, sure, but it's affordable. We sell his bungalow, put the proceeds toward the entrance fee, and the government picks up the rest. He's got, what, maybe $1,000 a month from his CPP and OAS? That covers incidentals. You want to put my dad in a nursing home? I want to be practical. He can't live alone forever. And frankly, I'm not spending my weekends changing his diapers when the time comes. Neither are you. We have kids to raise, careers to build. He had his life. Now it's our turn. I heard my daughter start to cry. Soft, muffled, like she was trying to hide it from him. Sweetheart, come here. Look at me. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. Your dad is a good man. But good men still get old. And we need to protect ourselves, our family, our boys. You understand that, right? I don't know, Marcus. And listen, between you and me, I've already talked to a lawyer about power of attorney. It's the responsible thing to do. Before he gets any worse, we need to make sure we can make decisions for him, handle his finances, his house, everything, before some scammer or some charity worms their way in and takes it all. The folder under my arm suddenly felt like it weighed 200 pounds. He's not going to agree to that. He doesn't have to. We get him to sign during a lucid moment. Hell, I can draft the paperwork myself, slip it in with some birthday card or Father's Day thing. He'll sign anything you put in front of him, if you're the one asking. I took one slow step backward, then another. My boots made no sound on the concrete walk. I reached my truck, a 10-year-old Silverado I'd bought used the year my wife died, and I sat behind the wheel for a long time without turning the key. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from something older and colder than that. I'd been driven down highways in February, blizzards at 3 in the morning, with black ice under my tires, and 80,000 pounds of freight behind me. I'd buried my father, my mother, and my wife. I'd raised a daughter on a trucker's wages while my wife fought cancer for 2 years. I had never, in my entire life, felt the kind of fury that was rising up in me at that moment. I drove home. I made a coffee. I sat at my kitchen table and I opened the notary's folder, and I looked at the figures on the final page. $7.9 million in change, give or take the market's mood. And I made a decision. They wanted to think I was a burden, a forgetful old man with a dying pension and a house worth nothing. They wanted to put me in a shared room in Peterborough and collect my bungalow for pocket change while they drained whatever dignity I had left. Fine. Let them think that. Let them think exactly that. For 3 weeks, I played the part. I showed up to Sunday dinner in the same flannel shirt I'd owned since the 90s. I wore my work boots even though the soles were starting to split. I mentioned the price of milk twice in one conversation. I asked Marcus with my best confused old man squint to explain the Google to me. I told Claire I'd been thinking maybe I should sell the bungalow, that it was getting to be too much to shovel the driveway every winter. The look on Marcus's face. Christ, the look on his face. Like a wolf that had just watched a lamb walk into his den and ask for directions. "You know, Dan," he said, leaning back in his chair with the easy confidence of a man who thinks he's winning, "Claire and I have been talking. And we've actually been thinking about you a lot. We worry, you know. You out there all by yourself. That's kind of you, son." I'd never called him son before. He didn't even notice. "There's a place up near Peterborough, Maple Ridge, really lovely. Lots of activities, shuffleboard, bingo nights, that sort of thing. Other folks your age. It might be a real nice change for you." "Maybe," I said. "I'd have to think on it. Sell the house first." "Oh, we could help with that. I know a guy in real estate. He could get it listed quick. Save you the stress." That would be a real weight off my shoulders, Marcus. Claire wouldn't look at me during any of this. She pushed her roast beef around her plate and stared at her wine glass. I caught her eye once, just for a second, and I saw something in there I hadn't seen in a long time. Shame. Real bone-deep shame. She knew what she was doing was wrong. She just didn't know how to stop. That was the detail that saved her, that one look. Because as I drove home that night, I realized my daughter wasn't the enemy. She was a hostage. 11 years of marriage to a man who'd slowly convinced her that every instinct she had was wrong, that her father was a problem to be solved, that love was something you calculated on a spreadsheet. I was going to get her back. But first, I was going to burn Marcus to the ground. I called my lawyer the next Monday. Not the small-town notary who'd handled Raymond's estate. A real lawyer. A Bay Street firm in Toronto, the kind with glass doors and a receptionist who looked like she earned more than I used to. I hired a woman named Miss Patel who'd been recommended by one of Raymond's old business partners. I told her the whole story. She listened without interrupting, made notes in tidy little columns, and when I was done, she told me 3 things. First, Marcus could not force me into a nursing home. Nobody could, not without a doctor's assessment and a legal finding of incapacity, which I was nowhere near. Second, if Marcus had actually drafted fraudulent power of attorney paperwork, that was a criminal offense under the Ontario Criminal Code, and we could pursue charges. Third, and this was the one that made me smile for the first time in 3 weeks, she had a forensic accountant on retainer who specialized in exactly this kind of family fraud. And if I wanted, he could take a very quiet look at my son-in-law's finances. I wanted. 2 weeks later, Miss Patel called me into her office. She slid a manila envelope across her desk, the same way I'd planned to slide that cream folder across Claire's kitchen island. Marcus was drowning. Not treading water. Drowning. He had 3 lines of credit maxed out, 2 of them in Claire's name, that she almost certainly didn't know about. He'd lost $97,000 in a cryptocurrency scheme the previous fall. He was 9 months behind on the second mortgage on the Oakville house. The mortgage he'd taken out without telling Claire by forging her signature on the documents. And he was currently being investigated by the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario for misappropriating client funds at his firm. He had, at my conservative estimate, about 6 weeks before the whole house of cards came down on his head. And here's where I could have just let it happen. I could have sat back, sipped my Tim Hortons, and watched Marcus destroy himself. But that would have destroyed Claire too. And the boys, they would have lost the house. Claire would have been legally on the hook for the forged loans. The credit damage alone would have followed her for a decade. I couldn't let that happen. Even after what she'd let him say about me, she was still my little girl. The kid who used to sit on my lap in the truck cab and count the red cars on the 401. So I called Marcus. I asked if he'd meet me for lunch at a diner in Whitby, halfway between us. I told him I wanted to talk about selling the bungalow. He practically leapt through the phone. He showed up in a new watch. I clocked it the moment he sat down across from me. Omega, stainless steel, maybe $8,000. A man 9 months behind on his mortgage, wearing an $8,000 watch to have lunch with his broke father-in-law. It took everything in me not to grab him by the collar right there. Marcus, I've been thinking about what you said. Oh yeah? The nursing home thing. Maple Ridge. And I think you're right. It's time. I'm going to sign the papers. Whatever you need. Power of attorney. House sale. The works. He tried not to smile. He really did. But I saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward, and I watched a little vein in his temple pulse with pure, undiluted greed. Dan, that's really mature of you. That takes real courage, admitting when you need help. I appreciate that, son. I'll get the paperwork drawn up this week. One condition, though, anything. I want to do it right. I want a lawyer present. My lawyer. She's drafted the power of attorney herself. I want to sign it in her office with witnesses all above board. That way nobody can ever come back and say I was pressured or confused or any of that nonsense. I watched him hesitate, just for half a second. Then he nodded. Of course. That's smart. Very smart. Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock. I'll send you the address. I'll be there. I picked up the bill. $22 for 2 coffees and 2 club sandwiches. Marcus ordered a 12-year-old scotch with his at $18 a glass and didn't offer to contribute. I tipped the waitress 30% and walked out into the parking lot feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like a father again. Friday came. Marcus showed up 15 minutes early, freshly shaved, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Claire came too because I'd asked her to. She looked exhausted. She'd lost weight. When she hugged me in the lobby, she held on a second longer than usual. Dad, are you sure about this? I'm sure, sweetheart. Miss Patel's office had a long oval table and 3 people already seated when we walked in. My lawyer, of course, and 2 others Marcus didn't recognize. He looked at me questioningly. Marcus, this is Detective Sergeant Rowan from the Halton Regional Police Financial Crimes Unit. And this is Mr. Chen, a forensic accountant I retained 2 months ago. The color drained out of his face in 3 distinct stages. White, gray, something close to green. Dan, what is this? Sit down, Marcus. I don't think I'm going to. Sit down. He sat. I opened the cream-colored folder, the one I'd carried to Claire's house almost 2 months earlier. I laid it on the table between us. On August 29th, my brother Raymond passed away. He left me an estate valued at $7.9 million. A cottage on Muskoka, 2 rental properties, a stock portfolio. I was coming to Claire's house that afternoon to tell you both. I was going to pay off your mortgage. I was going to set up education trusts for Ethan and Cole. I was going to give you, Claire, enough to walk away from a job you hate and do something that made you happy. Claire made a sound I can't really describe, like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed. But then I stood on your back step, and I listened to your husband call me a walking liability. I listened to him plan to forge my signature onto a power of attorney. I listened to him plan to sell my house out from under me and dump me in a shared room in Peterborough so he wouldn't have to change my diapers. Dad? Let me finish, honey. I slid a second folder across the table. This one was not cream-colored. This one was the manila envelope Miss Patel had given me. Inside this folder, Marcus, is a summary of the $340,000 of debt you've accumulated in my daughter's name without her knowledge. The forged signature on the second mortgage on your Oakville home. The cryptocurrency losses you've been hiding. And a preliminary report from the FSRA indicating you're under active investigation for misappropriating approximately $210,000 of client funds at your firm. Detective Rowan opened a small notebook. Marcus started to stand again. Sit down, Marcus. My lawyer this time. Her voice was iron. Claire, I said, I want you to look at me. Not at him, at me. She did. I love you. I have loved you since the day your mother put you in my arms at Lake Ridge Hospital at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday. I will always love you, and I am so sorry you have been living with this for 11 years. I should have seen it. I should have said something. But I'm saying something now. You deserve better than this. Your boys deserve better than this, and I am going to make sure you get it. She started crying. Really crying. Not the muffled kind from that September afternoon, the kind that shakes your whole body. Detective Rowan stood and asked Marcus to come with him. Marcus looked at Claire. He reached for her hand. She pulled it away like his fingers were made of fire. Don't, she said. Don't ever touch me again. They took him out through the side door. The whole thing took maybe 4 minutes. Miss Patel poured my daughter a glass of water. I put my arm around her shoulders and let her cry into my flannel shirt, the old one I'd worn to that first Sunday dinner 3 weeks ago, the one I'd picked deliberately so they'd think I was poor. Dad, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know about the loans. About any of it. I know, sweetheart. But I did know about the nursing home thing. I didn't stop him. I let him talk like that about you. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. You're going to have a chance to make it right. You're going to have a lot of chances. Here's what happened after. Marcus was charged with forgery, uttering forged documents, and fraud over $5,000 under the criminal code. The FSRA investigation concluded separately, and he was charged additionally with breach of trust. He pleaded out rather than go to trial. He got 4 years in a federal institution, out in probably 2 with good behavior. Miss Patel handled Claire's divorce. The forged loans in her name were unwound through the courts, since a forged signature isn't a valid contract. The Oakville house was sold because neither Claire nor I could stand the thought of her raising the boys there, in those same rooms where he'd made his calls and drafted his plans. I bought her a house. A real one, not too big, not too flashy, on a quiet street in Burlington, with a maple tree in the front yard and a finished basement for the boys. I paid for it cash, and I put it in her name, and I told her if Marcus ever came within 100 meters of her or the boys after he got out, I'd know about it, because I'd hired a service to make sure of it. I set up the education trust for Ethan and Cole. I put a little aside for Claire, enough that she could walk away from her marketing job and try writing that book she'd wanted to write since she was 17. She's about 40,000 words in now. It's about a single mother raising 2 sons in Ontario. It's going to be good, I can tell. I kept the Muskoka cottage. In the summers now, Claire drives the boys up, and we spend long weekends on the dock watching the loons. Cole, who's 12, asked me last August why I'd never told anyone I was rich. I thought about it for a minute. I wasn't rich then, buddy. I didn't become rich until about 2 months after I found out about the money. He looked confused. I became rich the day your mom chose her family back. The money was just paperwork. He didn't really get it. He's 12. He will someday. People ask me sometimes if I forgave Claire. The answer is, I never really needed to. She was drowning in deeper water than I could see from the shore, and all she needed was a hand. Marcus, though, I'll be honest with you. I hope his 2 years inside feel like 20. I hope every single day of it he thinks about the cream-colored folder on Miss Patel's table, and what his life could have been if he'd just been a decent man to the people who loved him. Because that's the thing about family. My old man used to tell me this, back when I was a kid in Hamilton, and he was still working the steel mill. He'd say, Danny, family is not about what you get from them. It's about what you're willing to give. Marcus never understood that. He thought family was a thing you harvest, a thing you mine for whatever you can extract before the seam runs dry. And he thought I was the seam. He was wrong. I was the dynamite.